The papier-mâché dragon's head split open under the TV lights, and suddenly Rosa was on every screen in America. 20,000 people in the crowd, millions more watching a live broadcast of the Rose Parade, and there she was, a Honduran seamstress who'd paid $8,000 to hide inside a carnival float, now emerging like some tragic magic trick gone wrong. The CNN reporter's face transformed from professional smile to genuine shock as Rosa tumbled out, her eyes wild with panic, her hand still clutching the water bottle that had kept her alive for the past 18 hours. In that moment, before the chaos erupted, their eyes met. Two women separated by citizenship, but united by an instant of pure human recognition. The plan had seemed brilliant when explained in the warehouse outside Tijuana. Marco, the coordinator, had connections with a company that transported carnival floats and parade decorations across borders. After major festivals, these elaborate constructions traveled back to American warehouses for storage and refurbishment. The hollow spaces inside the giant figures, dragons, princesses, abstract designs, could hide people if they were willing to endure hours of cramped stillness. Rosa had arrived at the warehouse with two friends from her Honduras factory, Luis, barely 20 and full of dreams about California construction work, and Ana, a single mother who'd left her children with her sister to seek wages that could actually feed them. They'd each paid their life savings for what Marco promised was the safest crossing available. No desert walks, no river swims, no packed trucks. Just climb inside a float, stay quiet, and emerge in Los Angeles. The floats were magnificent even in the dim warehouse light. Towering creations of wire, foam, and dreams, built for the grand parades that celebrated culture on both sides of the border. Rosa was assigned to a dragon float, its body sectioned into hidden compartments. Luis would hide inside a giant butterfly, Ana in a princess castle. The spaces were tight but manageable, with air holes disguised as decorative elements and even small battery-powered fans to prevent suffocation. Marco showed them photos of previous successful crossings, smiling people emerging from floats in American warehouses, testimonials from those who'd made it to steady jobs and stable lives. He explained the route carefully. The floats would cross at a commercial checkpoint where inspection was cursory, especially for established cultural exchange companies. Once across, they'd travel directly to a warehouse in Pasadena where sympathetic workers would release them after dark. The preparation was meticulous. They practiced climbing in and out quickly, learned to position themselves to avoid cramps during the long hours of confinement. Marco provided water bottles with long straws that could reach their hiding spots, energy bars, even portable urinals for the journey. He seemed to have thought of everything, charging premium prices for premium service. The morning of departure, they climbed into their assigned floats in the pre-dawn darkness. Rosa settled into the dragon's belly, the space padded with foam to prevent injury during transport. Through small air holes, she could see the warehouse ceiling, hear Luis and Ana getting situated in their own floats. Marco's team worked efficiently, sealing the hidden panels with temporary fasteners that could be opened from inside in emergency. The first hours were almost pleasant. The gentle swaying of the truck was soothing, and Rosa dozed fitfully, dreaming of the job waiting for her in Los Angeles, a position in a garment factory that paid 10 times what she earned in Honduras. She thought of her younger siblings who depended on her wages, of the house they might someday build, of the education she could provide them. The border crossing happened while she slept. She woke to the truck stopped, heard muffled voices, held her breath as she imagined agents examining the floats. But the inspection was indeed cursory. Who would think to thoroughly search cultural artifacts returning from a Goodwill festival? Within minutes, they were moving again, and Rosa allowed herself a small smile in the darkness. They'd made it to America, but something was wrong with the route. The truck should have continued straight to Pasadena, but Rosa felt it making too many turns, stopping too frequently. Through her air holes, she caught glimpses of buildings, crowds, barriers being erected. The journey was taking far longer than the 6 hours Marco had promised. Her water was running low, the air growing stale despite the small fan. Then the truck stopped for an extended period. Rosa heard voices, lots of them, excited chatter about positions and timing, equipment being unloaded and arranged. Through her peephole, She saw they were in some kind of staging area filled with other parade floats. Her heart sank as she realized what had happened. They weren't heading to a warehouse. They were at the actual Rose Parade, about to join procession watched by millions. The change must have been last minute. Later, she'd learned that another float had mechanical problems, and the festival organizers had desperately called for replacements. The transport company, seeing an opportunity for publicity and payment, had diverted their returning floats to fill the gap. They had no idea about the human cargo hidden inside, assuming they were moving empty decorations. Rosa tried to stay calm as the float began moving again, but this movement was different, slower, with frequent stops. She could hear crowds now, music, announcers describing the procession. The dragon float she was hiding in wasn't just transportation anymore. It had become part of the show. Through her air holes, she caught glimpses of packed sidewalks, children on shoulders, the whole pageantry of American celebration. The heat inside the float was becoming unbearable. The California sun, mild in January but still warm, heated the papier-mâché and foam construction. The battery-powered fan had died hours ago. Rosa's water was gone. She was dizzy from dehydration and limited oxygen, muscles screaming for maintaining the same position for so long. But she couldn't move, couldn't make a sound. They were surrounded by thousands of people. Then the parade stopped. Not a brief pause, but a full halt. Rosa heard an announcement about technical difficulties, floats being examined. Through her peephole, she saw technicians moving between the displays, checking mechanisms. One was approaching the dragon, tools in hand. He began examining the float's construction, tapping panels, testing joints. His hand was inches from the hidden latch to her compartment. In her dehydrated, oxygen-deprived state, Rosa made a desperate decision. If she was going to be discovered, better to emerge on her own terms than be dragged out like cargo. She pressed the emergency release from inside, and the panel swung open just as the technician reached for it. The dragon's belly birthed a human being on live television, and the crowd's delighted cheers turned to gasps of shock. Rosa tumbled out onto the parade route, her legs too cramped to support her properly. The technician stepped back in surprise. Security began moving toward the scene. But in that moment of chaos, as Rosa tried to stand on legs that wouldn't work, a woman rushed forward from the media area. It was Sarah Chun, a CNN reporter covering the parade, and something in Rosa's eyes, perhaps the universal look of human desperation, made her act on instinct rather than journalism. Sarah caught Rosa as she fell, whispered urgently in English that Rosa didn't understand but whose tone was unmistakable. "I'm going to help you." As security approached, Sarah quickly spoke into her microphone, improvising a story about a parade performer who become ill inside the float, requesting medical assistance. Her camera operator, following her lead, turned the camera away from Rosa's face, focusing instead on the crowd's reaction. In the confusion that followed, Sarah managed to guide Rosa away from the main scene. Other floats were being inspected now. Louise emerged from the butterfly to immediate arrest. Anna was discovered before she could exit the castle. But Sarah, using her press credentials and quick thinking, got Rosa to the media tent, claiming she needed to interview the sick performer. Inside the tent, away from cameras and crowds, Sarah gave Rosa water, food, a jacket to cover her disheveled appearance. She spoke slowly in broken Spanish, explaining she couldn't harbor as a fugitive, but she could give Rosa a few minutes head start before reporting the truth. She pressed money into Rosa's hand. Not much, but enough for a bus ticket somewhere. Then she pointed to a gap in the tent's back wall and turned away, giving Rosa the chance to disappear. Rosa ran, or tried to run on legs still recovering from hours of confinement. Behind her, she could hear the parade resuming, announcers explaining the technical difficulties to the audience. The dragon float would continue its journey, empty now, while the butterfly and castle were removed for safety inspections. The show, as always, went on. She found herself in Pasadena's streets, just another Hispanic woman, in a city full of them. The money Sarah had given her was enough for a bus ticket to East Los Angeles, where she'd heard undocumented workers could find day labor. She left no trail, made no contacts, simply vanished into the shadows of the city like thousands before her. The footage of her emergence became briefly viral, the woman who tumbled from the dragon's belly during the Rose Parade. But Sarah's quick thinking had prevented clear shots of Rosa's face, and the official story remained that a performer who had become ill. Luis and Anna weren't so fortunate. Their arrests were processed, their deportation swift. The parade company claimed no knowledge of human cargo, and the investigation dead-ended with Marco, who'd vanished along with his warehouse operation. Rosa found work eventually, cleaning offices at night in buildings she could never enter during business hours. She sent money home when possible, small amounts that took months to accumulate. She never contacted Sarah Chun, though she sometimes saw her on TV screens in store windows, reporting on immigration issues with what Rosa thought was particular compassion. The Dragon float was retired after that parade, deemed structurally compromised. It sat in a warehouse somewhere, its belly forever marked by the imprint of a human being who traveled inside it from Mexico to America, from hope to panic, from hidden to exposed in front of millions. A strange monument to the desperate creativity of border crossing and the random kindness of strangers. Luis was deported within weeks, his California construction dreams ending before they began. He tried crossing again through more conventional routes, each failure adding to his debt and desperation. Anna made it back to her children, but without the wages she'd sought, returning poorer than she'd left. The factory job she'd abandoned was gone, filled by someone else willing to work for pennies. Rosa learned to live in shadows, avoiding cameras and crowds, working jobs that required no documentation. She moved frequently, always paid rent in cash, existed in the parallel economy of the undocumented. The $8,000 she'd paid for Carnival crossing seemed like a fortune now, a sum that would take years to earn again. Sometimes she dreamed of the dragon's belly, the darkness and heat and growing panic, as the parade route replaced the promised warehouse destination. She'd wake gasping, feeling the walls closing in, hearing the crowd's cheers that had nearly been her doom. The nightmares were specific. The moment the panel opened, the TV lights blinding her, the sea of faces all turned her way. She wondered about Sarah Chun, the reporter who'd risked her career for a stranger's freedom. What had made her act? Was it simple human compassion, or had she seen something in Rosa's eyes that demanded response? They'd shared maybe 5 minutes together, but those minutes had been the difference between deportation and survival. Rosa wished she could thank her properly, but contact would only endanger them both. The parade company increased security after the incident, installing sensors in their floats to detect human presence. The cultural exchange program continued, but with new scrutiny. The hollow spaces that had hidden desperate people were filled with solid foam. The dragons and butterflies and castles became what they'd always pretended to be, empty decorations, beautiful surfaces with nothing inside. Marco's operation had been one of many exploiting the cultural connections between Mexico and the United States. Parade floats, art exhibitions, traveling shows, all became potential vehicles for human smuggling. The creativity was endless because the desperation was endless. Where legitimate crossings were impossible, illegitimate ones flourished, each more elaborate than the last. Rosa aged quickly in America, stress and hard labor taking their toll. She developed the hypervigilance common among the undocumented, always checking for immigration agents, always ready to run, always carrying her few possessions in case she needed to disappear again. The freedom she'd sought felt more like a different kind of imprisonment, bordered by fear rather than geography. She never attended another parade, couldn't bear the music and crowds and celebration. They reminded her too much of that moment when private desperation became public spectacle. She'd been entertainment for millions without meaning to be, her emergence in the dragon's belly a surreal intermission in American celebration. The crowd had gasped and pointed and recorded, not seeing a human being but a curiosity, a malfunction in their ordered festivities. Years later, Rosa learned that Sarah Chun had won awards for her immigration reporting, praise for bringing humanity to divisive issues. Rosa wondered if their brief encounter had influenced that work, if saving one desperate woman had shaped how Sarah told the stories of others. It was a comforting thought that something positive had come from those panic moments on the parade route. The friends she made among other undocumented workers had their own stories of creative crossings, hidden in furniture shipments, sewn into car seats, disguised as mannequins in clothing trucks. The human imagination for circumventing borders was matched only by the imagination for enforcing them. It was an arms race of desperation versus authority, with people like Rosa caught in between. She thought sometimes about writing her story, sending it anonymously to Sarah Chun. But what would be the point? It was just one story among millions, distinguished only by its public nature. Most crossings happened in darkness and solitude. Hers had happened in sunshine before crowds. But the result was the same, a life in shadows, forever looking over her shoulder. The dragon float had promised concealment, but delivered exposure. The parade route had replaced a warehouse destination through simple bad luck and corporate opportunism. 3 friends had climbed into Carnival Creations believing in safe passage, but only one had avoided deportation, saved by a reporter's split-second compassion. The arithmetic of crossing meant someone always paid the price, and Luis and Anna had paid for Rosa's freedom. Her story ended not with resolution but with continuation. Working, hiding, sending small amount home, existing in the spaces between legal and illegal. The dragon's belly had carried her to America, but America had no place for her except in its shadows. She'd emerged on live television into a country that immediately looked away, preferring its immigrants hidden inside floats rather than walking its parade routes. The Rose Parade continued annually, floats growing more elaborate, security growing tighter. Somewhere in Pasadena, the dragon float gathered dust, its belly forever marked by one woman's desperate journey. And somewhere in Los Angeles, that woman continued her American life, forever grateful to a reporter who'd chosen humanity over headlines, forever haunted by the moment when hiding became impossible and a carnival dragon gave birth to an unwanted truth on the most watched street in America.